My child, before you do anything else, pause right here, just for a moment. Let the title settle into your mind. Today, 15th December, Archangel Michael says, check your bank account balance 20 minutes after. That alone is enough to make your attention sharpen. And that's exactly why you were drawn here. Not out of curiosity, not out of habit, but because something about this moment feels intentional. This is not random, and you didn't arrive here by accident. Today, on the 15th of December, the timing matters more than you realize. Archangel Michael's message today is quiet, precise, and grounded. It isn't loud or dramatic. It doesn't rush you. Instead, it asks you to slow down, to stay present, and to listen differently. Before your mind starts questioning why, take a breath and stay with these words. Don't skip ahead. Don't scroll away. Something meaningful is unfolding, and it only reveals itself to those who stay long enough to notice it. Michael says this moment is a pause before movement, a space where things settle before they shift. You've been carrying pressure silently, handling responsibilities without recognition, staying patient even when you felt close to losing it. None of that went unseen. Today is not about creating excitement. It's about alignment. And alignment often feels calm before it becomes visible. That's why you're being asked to stay right here, fully aware. The instruction itself is simple but specific. Check your bank account balance 20 minutes after watching this. Not immediately. Not later tonight. Exactly after the time has passed. Michael says this isn't about money in the way most people think. It's about timing and recognition. Blessings don't always arrive with announcements. Sometimes they appear quietly, and only those who are attentive recognize them for what they are. Rushing causes people to miss what was meant to reassure them. If you felt like things in your life have been delayed, paused, or inconsistent, understand this clearly. Pauses are not denials. They are preparation. Michael says cycles don't end with noise. They end with precision. And today marks the closing of a long pattern where effort didn't seem to match results. What comes next begins gently, not forcefully. That's why attention matters more than action right now. The number tied to this moment isn't random either. The timing carries meaning. Michael speaks of balance, completion, and alignment. When you check your account after those minutes pass, you are not just looking at numbers, you are observing a signal. Even if what you see appears small or ordinary, it is not insignificant. It's a marker. Proof that momentum has begun shifting direction, even if your mind tries to dismiss it. Many people miss these moments because they expect change to look dramatic. Michael says real progress often shows up as calm replacing anxiety, steadiness replacing uncertainty, or reassurance replacing constant questioning. Those shifts are just as real as visible results. They tell you that the way life responds to you has started to change. Stay with this message. Don't rush through it. This isn't meant for everyone, it's meant for the one who chose not to scroll away. The reason this feels personal is because it is. You've been asking for confirmation that something behind the scenes is finally moving. This is that confirmation. But signs don't shout. They whisper, and only a still, attentive mind hears them. Michael says the energy around you today is shifting from waiting to receiving. That's why everything feels slower, steadier, more deliberate. Your awareness is catching up with what's already aligning in your favor. This moment isn't suspenseful, it's precise. There are times when practical life mirrors inner faith. Today is one of those times. When you check your balance after the 20 minutes, don't rush to interpret it. Don't overthink. Simply observe. Notice not only what you see, but how you feel. A sense of relief, a quiet finally. Even a subtle easing of tension. Those are signals. They tell you that the cycle you've been stuck in is no longer operating the same way. If effort felt heavy before, understand that results don't always arrive loudly. Sometimes they arrive aligned. This is a rare window where awareness matters more than doing, and that's why you're still here, listening instead of moving on. Before continuing, take a moment to anchor this awareness. If this message feels personal, share it with someone who needs clarity today. If something in your heart resonates, comment, not for noise, but to acknowledge alignment. And if you want to stay connected to what unfolds next, subscribe, because what comes later builds directly on what you're hearing now. This isn't about numbers, it's about intention. Michael says alignment multiplies when it's acknowledged. You're not just watching, you're participating. The minutes after this message are not ordinary minutes. They are a bridge between patience and proof. Stay calm, stay grounded, stay present. This is not the end of the message, it's the setup. If you leave now, you risk missing the quiet shift already happening beneath the surface. And this shift doesn't repeat itself often. It happens when awareness and readiness meet. That's why this moment feels steady instead of dramatic. True alignment doesn't shock, it settles. Michael wants you to understand this clearly. What you're feeling now isn't tension. It's anticipation without anxiety. That's rare. It means something long delayed has finally been released into motion. The stillness you sense isn't emptiness. It's alignment locking into place. Waiting those 20 minutes isn't about time passing, it's about separation, separating old patterns from a new flow. For a long time, things moved inconsistently for you. Hope, then silence, effort, then pause. Michael says that cycle ends today. Not loudly, but permanently. When you check your account, you are checking confirmation that the universe has started responding differently to you. Even if the change is subtle, your intuition will recognize it. This is a once-in-a-lifetime alignment where patience is rewarded with proof. Attention is the key right now. Where attention stays, momentum grows. That's why you're being asked again and again to stay, not to rush, not to demand, just to remain present. The next phase of your journey doesn't begin with an announcement. It begins with inner certainty. You may notice your mind feels quieter than usual. That's not accidental. That's clarity settling in. This is what alignment feels like just before it becomes visible. Whatever you've been preparing for emotionally, spiritually, or practically, this is the signal to stop bracing and start allowing. This message ends here, but what it activates continues with you. Move slowly after this. Let things unfold without forcing meaning onto them. Stay grounded, stay aware. And when the time comes, simply check your balance, not with expectation, but with presence. What follows will feel different, not because the world changed overnight, but because your alignment did. My child, stay right here. The reason this message continues is not to overwhelm you, but to steady you. Archangel Michael says, when awareness deepens, movement becomes smoother. You are being guided into a state where things no longer feel fragile, rushed, or uncertain. This is important, because what begins quietly has a way of lasting longer than what begins with noise. If you notice that your body feels calmer than usual, or that your thoughts are not racing the way they normally do, that is not coincidence. Michael says this calm is intentional. It signals that resistance has softened. You are no longer bracing for disappointment or preparing for delay. You are allowing something to unfold naturally without forcing it to prove itself immediately. For a long time you lived in a cycle of anticipation followed by pause. You would feel hopeful, then things would stall. You would take action, then wait again. That pattern trained your nervous system to stay alert, always watching for the next sign, the next confirmation. Michael says that cycle has been exhausting, even if you didn't consciously label it as such. And today, on the 15th of December, that cycle begins to dissolve. This is why the instruction was not rushed. Waiting the specific amount of time is not about discipline, it is about recalibration. You are stepping out of urgency and into alignment. Urgency belongs to fear, alignment belongs to trust, and trust creates stability before it creates visible results. That stability is what you are feeling now. Michael wants you to understand that when life begins to respond differently, it often starts internally. Before circumstances change, perception changes. Before numbers change, anxiety quiets. Before outcomes shift, confidence settles in without needing reassurance. These are not small signs, they are foundational ones. They tell you that your inner state is no longer fighting the current. You may find yourself thinking less about when will it happen and more about I feel okay right now. That shift matters. It means your energy is no longer scattered across worry and expectation. It is focused. And when focus appears, momentum builds naturally. This is why you were guided to stay present instead of jumping ahead. Michael says most people miss their turning point because it feels too calm. They expect excitement, emotion, or urgency. But true turning points often feel like relief, like a quiet exhale after holding your breath for too long. If you feel lighter since starting tea, his message, that's not imagination. That's alignment beginning to hold. The instruction to check your bank account after the time passes is a grounding act. It connects the spiritual to the practical. It reminds you that alignment does not float above daily life, it integrates into it. Whether you see a change in numbers, a notification, or simply feel peace where anxiety once lived, the meaning is the same. Something has unlocked. Michael says, do not rush to label what you see as good or bad. This moment is not about judgment, it is about recognition. Recognizing that the way life responds to you has shifted. That response may continue unfolding gradually, but it has already begun. And beginnings often feel subtle before they feel significant. If you've been carrying responsibility silently, always holding things together without complaint, today offers release, not the kind that collapses you, but the kind that steadies you. You are no longer holding everything up alone. Support is forming quietly around you, even if you can't yet name it. There is also something important about consistency that Michael wants you to hear. Progress that lasts does not come from intensity, it comes from steadiness. That is why this message repeats the reminder to stay, to not skip, to remain present. You are learning how to hold focus without strain, and that skill will matter greatly in what comes next. If at any point your mind tries to wander or dismiss this moment as just another message, gently bring your attention back. Not because you must believe anything, but because presence itself is the signal. Where your attention rests, momentum follows. And right now, your attention is aligned. Take a moment here to anchor this awareness again. If this message resonates, like it, not for the algorithm, but as an acknowledgement to yourself that you stayed present. Comment if you feel guided to, so the moment is marked. And subscribe if you want to remain connected to what unfolds next, because this journey is not finished yet. Each part builds on the one before it. Michael says you are crossing a line between watching and receiving. That crossing often feels quiet. You may notice that you're no longer checking the clock as often, no longer questioning every second. That is a sign that trust is settling in, and trust changes how outcomes approach you. The next phase of your life does not require urgency, it requires steadiness. That is why nothing here feels rushed. That is why the instruction was specific, calm, and grounded. When timing is exact, effort becomes light. You don't need to push. You don't need to convince yourself. You simply need to stay present. As the waiting period completes, do not rush to tell yourself a story about what it means. Just observe. Let your intuition register the change before your mind tries to explain it. Sometimes confirmation arrives as numbers, sometimes it arrives as relief, sometimes it arrives as the absence of worry. All of those are valid. Michael says the universe does not always announce progress. Often it removes pressure instead. If pressure has eased even slightly, that is movement, that is response, that is alignment beginning to express itself. You are entering a phase where patience becomes power, where stillness becomes movement, where effort meets response instead of resistance. This does not happen often, and it does not last if rushed. That is why awareness matters more than interpretation right now. As this part settles, carry this with you. Calm is not the absence of action, it is the presence of direction. You are no longer moving blindly. You are moving with a steadiness that allows things to meet you halfway. Stay grounded, stay aware, stay present. What has begun quietly will continue steadily, and what continues steadily has a way of becoming unmistakable. My child, stay with this moment a little longer. Archangel Michael says, the reason you are still here is because something deeper is settling now, something that cannot be rushed or explained in a single instant. This stage is about understanding why everything before today unfolded the way it did. Not to revisit frustration, but to finally release it. For a long time your life felt like it moved in starts and stops. Progress appeared, then paused. Hope rose, then went quiet. You questioned your timing, your decisions, sometimes even yourself. Michael says those pauses were not signs that you were off track. They were signs that your path required precision, not speed. What is aligning for you now needed you to become steady enough to hold it without fear. You may notice that your thoughts feel simpler now. Not empty, just quieter. Less noise, less mental negotiation, fewer what-ifs. This is not boredom or detachment. This is clarity stabilizing. Michael says when clarity arrives, it doesn't shout. It stays. And when it stays, direction becomes easier to follow. Many people believe momentum feels exciting. In truth, lasting momentum feels calm. It feels like things finally stop wobbling. That's why this phase can be confusing if you're used to chaos. You might wonder, why does nothing feel dramatic right now? And Michael answers gently, because drama is no longer required. The struggle phase has done its work. There is a difference between anticipation and anxiety. Anxiety tightens. Anticipation steadies. What you are feeling now is anticipation without fear. That means your nervous system is no longer bracing for disappointment. You are open without being exposed. That balance is rare, and it is the foundation for what comes next. Michael wants you to recognize how much has changed internally, even if the external world hasn't fully caught up yet. You respond more slowly, you think more clearly, you don't jump to conclusions as quickly, you don't feel the same urgency to prove or push. These are not signs of stagnation, they are signs of readiness. You are no longer in the phase of asking, will it happen? You are entering the phase of noticing it has started. That shift is subtle but powerful. It changes how you move, how you decide, how you wait. Waiting no longer feels like punishment, it feels purposeful. When you check your bank account after the time has passed, the meaning is not confined to numbers. Michael says what matters is the internal response. Do you feel calmer, more grounded, slightly reassured, even neutral instead of anxious? That internal shift is the confirmation. Outer results follow inner stability, not the other way around. This is why Michael keeps emphasizing attention. Attention is not effort, it is awareness. Where awareness stays, energy organizes itself. You don't need to force belief. You don't need to convince yourself anything is happening. Simply noticing without judgment is enough to keep momentum intact. You may also notice that your expectations feel lighter. You are no longer gripping outcomes tightly. That doesn't mean you don't care. It means you trust the process enough to let it unfold. Michael says this is the exact D-set that allows results to arrive cleanly without complication or resistance. For a long time, you were in a state of reaction, responding to delays, adjusting to changes, managing uncertainty. Today marks a shift into response instead of reaction. Response comes from clarity. Reaction comes from fear. And clarity is what is settling into place now. There is something else happening quietly. Your sense of self-trust is strengthening. You are less dependent on external reassurance. You don't need constant signs to feel secure. You are learning to recognize stability as a sign in itself. That inner confidence will guide you more reliably than excitement ever could. Michael says many people miss this phase because it feels too ordinary. They expect turning points to feel emotional or overwhelming. But true turning points feel grounded. They feel like the ground finally stopped shifting beneath your feet. That's what's happening now. If you reflect honestly, you may realize that you are no longer as reactive as you were even a few weeks ago. Situations that once triggered stress now feel manageable. Problems feel solvable instead of threatening. That change did not come from circumstances improving. It came from you stabilizing internally. This is why the instruction was never about rushing to see proof. It was about allowing alignment to complete itself. When alignment completes, results no longer need to fight their way in. They arrive naturally, often quietly, often steadily. Michael also wants to remind you that consistency matters more than intensity from this point forward. You don't need to make dramatic moves. You don't need to change everything at once. Small, steady actions taken from a calm state will carry more weight than big actions taken from urgency. If you've been waiting for a moment when things feel safe enough to move forward, understand safety now comes from inner steadiness, not external certainty. And that steadiness is already present. You don't need to wait for it. You are living inside it. This is also why you were asked repeatedly to stay, to listen, to not skip. Staying was not about obedience. It was about allowing your awareness to slow down enough to register the shift. Fast minds miss subtle changes. Calm minds recognize them. As this part continues to settle, take another moment to anchor your awareness. If this message still feels aligned, like it resonates rather than excites, like it steadies rather than rushes, acknowledge that. Like the message if you feel guided. Comment if you want to mark this moment consciously. Subscribe if you want to remain connected to what unfolds next, because this is not a standalone moment, it is a sequence. Michael says you are no longer standing in uncertainty, you are standing in readiness. Readiness does not demand proof, it recognizes direction, and direction is clear now, even if the full picture hasn't appeared yet. What you are experiencing is not delay. It is stabilization. And stabilization is what allows growth to last. From here, things begin to respond more consistently. Less up and down, less hope and disappointment, more steady movement forward. Carry this understanding with you as you move through the rest of the day. Move slowly. Observe without forcing meaning. Trust the calm instead of questioning it. This is the phase where things stop wobbling and start holding their shape. You are not waiting for change anymore. You are living inside the early stages of it. And that makes all the difference. Stay here for this final layer. Archangel Michael says this is where everything you've been sensing quietly settles into understanding. Not understanding that excites the mind, but understanding that calms the spirit. This part is not about adding more information. It's about letting certainty take its place naturally. If you notice that you no longer feel the urge to rush ahead, that you're not anxiously waiting for the next sentence or the next sign, that is not boredom. That is grounding. Michael says grounding is the signal that preparation is complete. You are no longer hovering between doubt and hope. You are standing on steadier ground now. For much of your journey, you lived with an underlying sense of tension. Even during calm periods, there was a quiet expectation that something might go wrong, that progress might stall again. That tension shaped how you waited, how you hoped, how you planned. Today, on the 15th of December, that pattern loosens its grip. Not through force, but through clarity. You may realize that your attention feels more stable now. Your thoughts don't scatter as easily. You're not replaying old worries or scanning the future for threats. Michael says this shift is not accidental. It means your inner direction has aligned with your outer intention. When that happens, life stops feeling fragile. This is why the message did not rush you. True alignment cannot be rushed. If it is hurried, it collapses under pressure. But when it settles slowly, it holds. What is forming now is not temporary reassurance, it is lasting stability. Michael wants you to recognize something important. You are no longer chasing outcomes. Outcomes are beginning to move toward you. That change in direction is subtle, but it alters everything. When you chase, you exhaust yourself. When things move toward you, you conserve energy and clarity. From this place, decisions feel lighter, actions feel cleaner, and waiting no longer feels like loss. You may notice that you no longer feel the need to constantly check, analyze, or interpret every small detail. That is not disengagement. That is trust becoming natural. Trust does not always feel emotional. Sometimes it feels neutral, steady, almost ordinary. But that neutrality is powerful because it means nothing is pulling you off balance. Michael says this calm you're experiencing is not the absence of movement, it is movement without friction. This is what happens when resistance steps aside. Life no longer has to push through doubt to reach you. It can approach directly. As you move forward from this moment, you may find that situations begin resolving themselves with less effort. Conversations become clearer. Decisions feel more obvious. Opportunities feel less chaotic and more supportive. These are not coincidences. They are signs that your inner state has stabilized enough to allow consistent response. You are entering a phase where progress does not come in spikes. It comes in steadiness. Less dramatic highs, fewer sudden drops, more reliability, more predictability, more trust in your own timing. Michael says this kind of progress builds something sustainable, not something that burns out. If you reflect on how you feel now compared to before this message began, you may notice a quiet difference, a sense of, I don't need to force this. That feeling is accurate. For the first time in a while, things no longer depend on urgency. They depend on consistency. Michael also wants you to understand that this calm does not mean you should stop caring or stop acting. It means your actions can now come from clarity instead of pressure. When clarity leads, effort becomes efficient. You do less, but what you do matters more. This is why the instruction to wait, observe, and stay present was repeated so often. Staying was not about endurance. It was about allowing your awareness to slow down enough to register stability. Fast attention misses foundational shifts. Calm attention recognizes them. You are no longer in a phase of being tested. You are in a phase of being positioned. Positioning feels quiet. It doesn't demand attention. It simply places you where movement can happen smoothly. And once positioning is complete, momentum sustains itself. Michael says from this point forward, consistency will matter more than intensity. Showing up calmly will bring more results than pushing hard ever did. Trusting your internal signals will guide you better than chasing external validation. If you check your bank account after the time has passed and feel a sense of reassurance, grounding, or even neutrality, do not dismiss it. That inner response is the true confirmation. Numbers can change again. Stability, once formed, does not disappear easily. This message is not promising instant outcomes. It is confirming a shift in how outcomes approach you, and that is far more valuable. When the inner state changes first, the outer world follows naturally without struggle. Michael wants you to carry one simple truth forward. Calm is not stagnation. Calm is alignment. When alignment holds, life begins responding consistently. You are no longer moving in circles, you are moving in a line. As this message completes, take one last moment to anchor your awareness. If this journey through the message felt steady rather than exciting, that is intentional. Like the message, if you feel aligned with this calm. Comment if you want to mark this moment consciously. Subscribe if you want to stay connected, because what unfolds next will build on this stability. You are no longer in the phase of asking for signs. You are in the phase of recognizing patterns, and the pattern forming now is one of steadiness, support, and gradual expansion. Move forward slowly from here. Let actions come from clarity. Let trust remain natural. Let expectations stay light. This is not a moment to rush or interpret too much. It is a moment to allow. What has settled inside you now will guide what unfolds next. And because it's settled quietly, it will last. You didn't miss anything. You arrived exactly when you needed to. This message ends here, but the alignment it activated continues. Stay grounded, stay present, stay aware. You are no longer waiting for things to start working in your favor. They already have.